Welcome to today's Data World Friday. Maybe before we dive into the topic for today, a short introduction. What is the Data World Friday? In general, the Data World Friday is a weekly meeting we do here at Scalefree, and essentially you, the listeners, our customers, they can send in questions through an online formula. I have a link at the end of the presentation as well, and then we choose one question each week. And try to answer it for you guys. So it's essentially like a Q&A session that we do every Friday at 11. Yeah, normally Michael does these sessions, but he cannot be here today. So that's why I'm here today, and I will try to answer some of your questions. Why did I say some? Because for today's topic, I actually choose three different questions because I felt like in the form they kind of belong together or kind of yeah, tackle the same topic a little bit. And essentially, these questions are: why do we need to have a data warehouse or data vault in our business? How do you explain what a data vault does to someone who's not a data expert, but more commercial executive? And then in the end, what size of company typically starts investing in data warehouses? I think they are all more from the business perspective and all more general questions. So I thought it makes sense to, yeah, essentially put them together and answer them in one Data World Friday. So yeah, let's start. Maybe first of all, before you start thinking about why do you need a data warehouse, the first question you should maybe ask is what are typical issues without a data warehouse in organizations? So yeah, a lot of traditional organizations, they still have some basic yeah, issues with their, let's say, data platform maybe, or yeah, reporting in general. So the first thing is access to data is limited to certain users. A lot of time you see that only a few users can access data. Maybe only marketing can access marketing data, even though it would be also interesting for sales and so on. Then there's no real structure process of data in place. So essentially, people do a lot of ad hoc queries. There's no real process for how your data should flow in the company. There are no really patterns available how you report data. Um, then it's expensive. A lot of time it's in trial and error decision making. So someone wants something and asks IT, can you help me with this? And they start to write some queries, then it doesn't fit, then they start again. Then maybe someone else comes in, he wants it differently, and so on. So it's really a trial and error and yeah, expensive process. Then there's only limited availability. A lot of times, if you don't have a real data warehouse or you don't have a real process with it, um, then you have problems with availability because maybe the data doesn't get load daily. Maybe someone needs to start a pipeline by hand. All these things that are just not there with a professional and real data warehouse, right? And then I think the biggest part, decisions are based on unreliable data and information, essentially. A lot of times you will have errors, especially when people write ad hoc queries all the time. When there is no real process how to store your data, everybody does what he wants, right? Or you don't even have access to your data at all. You don't even leverage the data at all. You just go by a gut feeling. These are just some general issues organizations have why a data warehouse makes sense. And then there are some more bigger business issues, right? So in the end, you have big data, a lot of volume and velocity nowadays. You want to integrate unstructured and multi-structured data into one place. You want to have some data science in your company, which sometimes bypass IT, which can be an issue. You want to have ownership in governments, especially nowadays, a really important topic. Someone needs to be responsible for the data. which is not very easy to keep in place when everybody writes their ad hoc queries. Then you have security and privacy, a big deal with GDPR here. All of your data needs to be essentially separated by personal and non-personal attributes. You need to have some process in place how you delete data. You need to have some security concepts, especially when the first audit comes in. So a really big topic. Auditability and accountability. So where's your data coming from? How is it processed? What transformations are made? How do I get my result that I get in the end? And then you also want to have some managed self-service BI. So essentially, what they do with their ad hoc queries, you still want them to allow them to do their own things and not be so dependent, but you want it to be managed essentially. So yeah, you want the core data that they use. Be cleaned, be correct data, be a point of truth essentially, and not yeah, a mess that they already started working on. So essentially these are drivers for why you need a data warehouse, right? And what is the benefit of a data warehouse in the end? There are some other ones. Why can't we just be agile from now? Why do I need it at all? Some questions from like more of the business people, which is then in the end, I think also the way how to tackle the question, how do I explain data world to business people essentially? But we come to that later. Yeah, essentially, these are all questions that management can ask, or what are reasons to introduce a data warehouse. So in the end, a data warehouse and Data World 2.0 in general, it's not just reporting how you know it. It's not just ad hoc queries and some people doing some stuff. It brings all these things I just mentioned in the end, reporting, dashboarding, analytics, an external interface that you can implement, a real data platform where you have clean data, where you have processes, daily loadings, all these topics. Data quality management, you can integrate it into your data warehouse. You could have a data catalog tool on top that really brings in governance, business process automation. It's not just the ad hoc query user writes or pipeline someone starts one a day. It's a real process behind it, how you do things. And this is essentially why you need a data warehouse. I hope that answered the question a little bit. Um, so essentially, what does a data warehouse do? It is a point for central data integration. Um, it enhances decision making. You can make historical data analysis. You will get improved data quality, and then also scalability and flexibility. Auditability is a big topic as well. Compliance, I talked about it already. GDPR being a big topic. And all these things are essentially reasons to implement a data warehouse. But how is it with Data Vault? If you want to explain Data Vault to a business user or to business person, I think the question stated is at commercial executive. Um, I think you need to turn it around a little bit. It's the same thing you saw on the other slide. So maybe ask yourself, what does my commercial executive want to know? What is interesting to him? What is important for him? Um, what part of the business does he work in? What are maybe the more important topics for him? And maybe you can also ask him questions to make him aware why he needs Data Vault 2.0 and what are benefits of it. If you start talking about GDPR, maybe he thinks like, okay, I have no idea how you could tackle this in a data warehouse setting or in a table in my Excel table. How would I do it? I don't know. But then you have the answer essentially. And this is data vault. And I think sometimes it makes sense, the same with data warehousing, but essentially with I think every project you want to introduce or every new thing and change you want to introduce, the first question you should ask is not uh, how do I explain it to him, but maybe what does he want to know and what is important to him. And then for me, for Data Vault, the first thing you should start with when explaining it to a business person is essentially to explain that it's not just a data model. This is what most people think uh, when they think about Data Vault. They think about the data model, right? They think about hubs, links, satellites. But yeah, essentially, Data Vault is a whole system of business intelligence. And yeah, we have the methodology, we have the architecture, and we have the modeling. So essentially, it brings a whole guideline to your business how you should or could set up a data warehouse to have in the end, a managed, scalable, flexible, consistent solution. So with the methodology, you get agile development, you can react to changes quickly. You get all these more project management parts, and for example, Tracer Bullet. I don't know if you know it. Maybe if you are listening to some of our webinars, you have heard of it. You can deliver business value really quickly because we work in an agile manner. And all these things, it's not just the model. You get the architecture, which is the multi-tier scalable architecture with it. It's a reference architecture, right? You can make it fit to your needs, but essentially you get like a whole guideline for your system of business intelligence in the company. And it's not only a data model. But yeah, in the end, you also have the really flexible and scalable data model, which is really automatable, so you can automatize it really well. And it covers topic like auditability and GDPR. So I would start with that, make clear that Data Vault is not just a model, but more a system of business intelligence, and that there are more parts to it. And after that, I would move on for business people to start getting um, into the features, right? What does make Data Vault so special? Essentially, it's the scalable and flexibility that you get, its consistency and auditability, um, and then for sure the methodology for me, the implementation. You get some agility with it that you don't have with traditional data models, right? And yeah, I would start with what is important for him, look at maybe features that Data Vault brings in, and try to explain him how it works. How do we get these features, or why do we get these features with Data Vault? Um, and if they want to talk about data modeling specifically, they want to understand really how it's done, then maybe go into the fundamentals of data vault, right? You have business keys, relationship, descriptive data. I don't want to talk about all of that now, but there are ways to explain it. I think the first way is to ask yourself, what does he want to know, and then see how you can explain it. And with this again as well, it's a little bit about not getting too detailed, but covering the most important parts essentially. Um, so yeah, I think a really easy option to explain Data Vault 2.0 is send a business commercial to a bootcamp of us for the 1 day. This is why we have it at Scalefree. Normally, maybe some of you have already joined the bootcamp of us. We do a 3 day Data Vault bootcamp. After that, you're ready for the certification. You really know how to use, model, and work with Data Vault. But for most business executive, they don't need that much information about Data Vault. For them, it's enough to join the 1 day. This is why we have it. On the first day, we cover more of the general topics, more of the basics of Data Vault, and then you get a real, basic feeling of what is Data Vault. And now we come to the last questions. Last question. I only have one slide for it because I think it's a really hard question to answer. Essentially, there is no real one size of company or one when does a point when a company starts to invest in data warehousing. I think it's not a real thing. I think there are too many influences on that. I think it really depends on the company. How important is data for them? What is the volume of data they have? Maybe how strong is the strategic advantage we get through these informations that we get out of our data warehouse? Um, in general, how much do we need to work with information to make decisions? I think nowadays every company should have analytics implemented. And I think the only real way to do it is a data warehouse. But yeah, I think there's just not one answer to this question. It's always depends on the company and on the use case. One thing I want to mention is that I think it's good to start early with it, even though maybe you don't have so much data yet, or you are still in a smaller state. Um, I think it just makes it much easier to grow your data warehouse over time, and to get strategic information early, and maybe even include external data sources early. That companies that start really late and they have like a huge amount of work to do only to implement their own data, they can't even think about implementing maybe some public data that they can get about concurrents, right? Concurrent companies or something like that. There are a lot of things you can also do with public data that a lot of companies, when they start late, they have this huge amount of data, they have a lot of work to do. So maybe it's good to start early while the complexity is still pretty low, than to start with this to start really late and have a lot of work essentially. But yeah, I think to this question there is no real one right answer. Yeah, and I hoped I could help you a little bit with these questions. I think today they were more on a business perspective. I guess next week we go into a more technical topic again. In general, I still think these questions are really interesting because a lot of time you have data warehouse teams or you have tech teams that want to implement a new technology or a new topic like data vault in their company, and they don't really know where to start, and how to explain it, or they even have issues to get their business people to implement a data warehouse because they are like, yeah, but my ad hoc queries, they still work fine, right? So yeah, I think it's important. If you have any questions you want to be covered in the next Data World Friday, feel free to submit them. There's already a small pipeline, but I think we will get through it. So if you have some questions, go to our website, Data World Friday. There we will find everything, where you can submit questions. Also, slash webinars, you find some general webinars. Maybe there's also something about your topic. I think we all always do really interesting webinars, so feel free to check this out. And then some other thing I wanted to mention, the Data Dreamland is happening again. Maybe some of you already joined it before. Essentially, it's a 2-day event. We do in September in Hanover on the 23rd and 24th of September. It's really cool. You get to really connect with people. Essentially, this year, I think one of the main topics is data governance and security, but also going into the direction of generative AI and machine learning. So yeah, but in general, you can see the topics on the website. It's really cool each year to see all of you guys and to really connect, and to listen to all these really interesting presentations. So feel free to check it out. Every year, it's a real treat to go there. And then we have the Data Vault Innovators or Data Innovators Exchange in general. It's a data platform we publish with some partners of us where we essentially share everything about data. People ask questions, share interesting informations, interesting articles. There's also a classroom nowadays and a calendar with events happening, like for example the Data Vault Friday. So feel free to check it out. It's a really cool community that is growing, and I think it only has benefits because it's also free. Yeah, so I hope I could answer your questions, and thank you for joining. And then see you next Friday. Thank you. Bye bye.